Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This is Sculptable, and today we're going to be doing a character sculpt on a Pinterest piece I saw of a character design, which I'm going to show in just a minute. It is a Pikachu steampunk character design by the artist Onkar Parab. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So today I'm going to be working through the process of creating a finished piece from concept to final 3D model. It's at this point that I am going through my geometry and adding basic primitives to then join together using either a Boolean function or the inbuilt joining function for different meshes in Blender in the Sculpting tab. At the moment, I'm really just trying to get the basic shape and edge flow for my character. Going into my joint geometry to refine my character shape, I'm basically just start with some simple shapes at the moment to define what my character is going to look like. After remeshing different objects together to create one unified mesh, I then go in and cave out different parts of the face, such as the eye sockets. I then go in to add some refined areas, such as areas of the nose and mouth, to really bring out the character in the sculpt at this early stage. After doing that, I plump up the cheeks of the character to make it look much more cute and chibi-esque, like the artwork would suggest. And then go in to create some basic eyes, which I do by taking a basic sphere shape, subdividing it, and then smoothing it out, and then sculpting it to make a eyeball shape that I can then use vertex paint on to create some basic colors to define what the character is going to look like aesthetically. This process of using vertex paint can take some time, but it's really useful, and I recommend going through this stage because it helps bring your character to life in this early process by adding some color to the model, which you don't normally get at this early process to create a character that is quite visually appealing. So I recommend going through it, and it's a lot of fun. Moving on from the vertex painting, I'm then going and adding some texture with a vertex paint brush to create the look of some 2D paint bristles to make the model stand out. And then going in and refining the face topology by sculpting out using a mixture of Dintopo and not Dintopo for regular sculpting, because I feel that it slows down the process a little bit if you use Dintopo a lot, and you really want to use that just for doing the refined features of your model. At this stage, I'm going in and adding some more character to the model and bringing out the cheekbones, the concave areas of the eyes, smoothing out the feet after remeshing objects together, and then adding in some basic objects like the scarf. After adding that in, I'm then going in and doing some more refining to the facial shape and the mouth, and making it more cute at this point, using some Dintopo at level 3 to make it more refined and professional. After this, I move on to the scarf, where I subdivide the model and then go into using the sculpt tools, such as the hook brush and the grab brush, to create a basic shape. I then move on to the legs using some curves to create some basic shapes for the front legs that are situated in front of the model to create a nice chibi aesthetic and appeal for the character, which I enjoyed making quite a lot. Further refinement is then added to the scarf geometry, which I smooth out and then sculpt on top of to create a really nice looking aesthetic for the scarf, which I cave into to make a sort of plasticine effect for the scarf, which I quite like, and then adding some individual strokes using the draw brush and the clay strips brush, as well as just the clay brush itself, to make a pretty nice looking object in general for the scarf, which I then work off of to create the final model. I then begin work on the feet geometry, which I add some basic primitives in to act as the objects just now. And then I go in to add some more geometry for the ears and tail. Starting off with the tail, I experiment with some different shape options, and I eventually go for a kind of curved effect for the tail, which I then go in and smooth later on, as it was quite a difficult piece of geometry to work with, because it's quite exaggerated in its shape language, but I think I was able to capture something that looks pretty much like the Pikachu tail that we're all familiar with. and I quite enjoyed making it. And this was a bit of a long process to do, as I've shortened the sequences here, but I think you can get the idea of what it took to make this kind of shape. I then move on back onto the scarf to improve the general shape geometry of the design, making it more refined at this stage as we're getting closer to the finished product of this 2-hour-ish sculpt. And then I move on to the ears, as I was talking about earlier, using the curves to create some basic shapes for the ears of Pikachu, which is quite easy to do and quite a lot of fun actually to create that process, because it creates quite a nice professional look for your model and quite an easy workflow. For this part of the model, I was creating the hat of Pikachu, which I used some basic primitives once again and subdivided them, and then sculpted a basic shape of the hat, adding some basic flair to the model, and then add some primitives from a add-on in Blender that gives you more shapes to work with to create these sort of prism-like shapes that are on the original concept piece that was on Pinterest. So I worked with that and created some interesting shapes, as well as working in with some curved cube objects to create the basic goggle shapes, which I then extruded to create the lenses part of the object. And then some general refinement was what was occurring at this stage in the process before adding in some more curved objects to create the strap of the goggles themselves, which was quite an interesting and easy process where you extrude two different types of the strap itself and create some buckles using the Bezier loop functions of Blender, which are quite easy and straightforward to work with and create, as you can see, quite a interesting final process. Speaking of goggles, I'm going in to add the parts of refinement to that object, as well as the feet, which I smoothed out to make them more cartoon-like and have less detail, whilst also just adding more finishing polish to the model, adding more creases to the scarf, and then adding in a little stand for Pikachu to sit on, and then adding in some basic vertex colors, which I painted for the model. And it was at this point that I decided to stop recording and fast forward a little while, where I added some finishing touches to the model, as well as some general look and polish and atmospheric qualities to the model itself, which I'll show just after this little section. And this is kind of what I ended up falling for. As you can see, it's a lot more realistic than what it was beforehand. I went through and added some basic hair particles to the model using Blender's built-in hair particle system, and then combed them using the particle comb features that Blender has built in, which needed no plugins to work, which was really useful and quite interesting because I haven't experimented with hair strands before. I also added some more cartoon effects to the model, as well as some more highlights and some bloom to the model itself, which added some interesting lighting and perspectives to correctly showcase the model itself, which is a very important part for any model, is to have good lighting to show it off at the end in your rendered preview. Here it is side by side with the original concept piece, and let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below, but I think I captured it pretty well. So until next time, I've been Sculptable, and I'll see you later.